Okay, now it's time for the fun part. I have let my starter rise a little bit. Ideally, you want it to double in size, but I've made it at this point or higher or lower. I think as long as it's above the line, I've had success. So do what you will, but I don't know if you can tell, but there should be some bubbles in there, and looking from the top, it looks bubbly. And so what you do is you are going to add your ingredients. I have a big bowl. I have one with a lid. You can always put a towel or plastic wrap over it, but in between working the dough, you want to have it covered so it doesn't dry out. And then use a kitchen scale. So you zero your scale, and then you put the bowl on, then zero your scale. Then you add the starter. So usually I always start with the starter so that I can decide how many batches I can make based on how much starter I have. So for a triple batch, I need 375 grams of, make sure that your scale is set in grams. If your recipe is in grams, you don't want to have the wrong measurement unit. So then you just dump in the starter. I have more in another jar that I'm going to add because I want to make a triple batch or a quadruple batch, depending on how much I can get out of this. Another thing you can do is feel free to use up all the starter. It's okay if there's just a little bit left. Even just like this stuff that didn't get scraped on the sides is enough. Okay, so 500 grams for this will work. That's a quadruple batch of starter. So then I need about 1400. So then I set it to zero, set the scale to zero, and then add water. It's a really good indicator if your starter floats on top of your water. That's what you want. Sometimes I do a little bit warm water so that I can get it to rise a little bit faster. It kind of gets that gets it going a little bit more quickly. Okay, so I added the water. You can see my thumb, and you can see that the sourdough is kind of sitting on top. So then I add salt. I zero it out and then add the salt. And this calls for 50 for a quadruple batch, 50 grams. I've just used different kinds of salt, and I don't notice a huge difference. This time I bought the pink Himalayan salt just for fun. And I'll let you know how that goes, but I don't think it is the end of the world. Either way, the recipe calls for sea salt. So then I just use my trusty butter knife and mix it in until it is kind of combined. There will be lumps of starter, and that's fine. It's just kind of to get the salt to dissolve in there and to kind of get the starter spread around before you add the flour. Make sure you have a big enough bowl for the size batch you're going to make. Obviously, this is a quadruple batch, so it's a lot more than the recipe calls for a single. Then you add the flour, zero it out again. I found that my scale can't handle more than a quadruple batch. Learned that the hard way. That got creative. So then I add 2,000 grams of flour. This is all-purpose, or no, this is bread flour. The Lehigh roller mills from Costco, but I've just used Walmart kind, and I used regular all-purpose, and I've been fine either way. So then I just dump in the flour. I also have a recipe that I love for wheat sourdough. If you like wheat, it's like 2/3 wheat and 1/3 white sourdough, and it's really good. Okay, 2,000 grams. So then I just use my butter knife again and just kind of stir it around. At first it's gonna seem like it'll never mix in. You can take it off the scale too, because we don't need that anymore. And really, that's all I use the recipe for anymore, is just to look at the quantities for each, like how many batches I'm making. And then you just kind of get the feel for it, and it's really not hard. I don't want you to be afraid to try it because it doesn't require a whole lot of referring to the recipe. You just need to figure out how to do it once or twice, and then you just go for it. It's so fun. So I am just trying to incorporate the liquid in with the flour so that I can start kneading it by hand. I've tried kneading it with my KitchenAid. I've tried different recipes. I've tried different methods. I felt like when I used my KitchenAid, it was more flat, had more like a pancake, less full. For some reason, kneading it by hand seems to get me better results, but I know other people have had great success trying other methods. There's so many ways to make bread. So just do what works for you and try different things. Don't be afraid to try. So right now it's just a shaggy, lumpy mess, and then I'm just going to knead it with my hands until I don't feel lumps of flour and until it's worked in. This usually takes me a couple of minutes, and I will do that and then show you in a minute. Okay, so I mixed it for probably 4 to 5 minutes, and it still is a shaggy mess. It is very sticky. It will leave your hands when you're done will just be covered, and you just try to scrape as much off. You can use the butter knife if you want, or you can just try to get as much off and then wash your hands. But it's a shaggy mess. So then you cover it and leave it for a half hour to rest, and then I will show you stretch and folds.